Welcome.
Testing.
My name is Loida Garcia-Febo. I am the president of the American Library Association. The Heart of Librarianship is a free webinar, part of my presidential efforts to explore the importance of accessible, welcoming, and responsive library environments that invite open and equitable participation. I wholeheartedly believe that librarians are enriching the conversation around these topics and must continue to move forward to embed humanity, compassion, empathy, awareness, and understanding into our library services nationwide. It is not an easy task, but as president, it is my intention to serve as a catalyst for this change. I am confident that together we can continue moving these conversations and, more importantly, these actions forward. It is my great pleasure to present Dr. Michael Stephens, Associate Professor in the School of Information at San Jose University, who has long advocated for connecting one's work to one's heart. I personally love one of his statements: service steeped in humanism, compassion, and understanding should be the cornerstone of what we do and why we do it for all members of our communities, including the underserved. It's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Stephens.
Okay, can you hear me? That's the question. I hope you can hear me. Oh, good. I lost all sound and people were saying that Loida was talking. Okay, so where are we at? Okay, I think people are talking, but I'm just hearing that clicking again, that problem we originally had. But if you guys can hear me, I'm going to roll with it. Is that okay? Okay. We'll, wow, we will switch over. There it is. Nice. And there's a nice group. I think Loida probably showed that picture. I was honored to be on her advisory committee, and all of that work led to this, as well as all of the other wonderful things that are going on. So yeah, I'm rolling with this. Somebody flag me down if the sound goes away. I'm pasting in a link to my blog, Tame the Web, that has a download of all of the slides and a bunch of citations from some of the writings that I mentioned. So don't feel you have to be writing stuff down furiously as we go through this. And for the total sake of transparency, I did my slides on my Mac in Apple Keynote, converted them to PDF, sent them to the great folks at ALA, Beatrice and Pam, thank you so much. They loaded it into Adobe Connect, and then Adobe Connect did things to my slides. So there's going to be like 2 or 3 that are going to show up. They're going to look kind of weird, but you'll have the slide download, and we're just going to roll with this today because it's fine. Okay, so welcome everybody. I do appreciate being here. I appreciate everybody joining us today, and this will be recorded too, which is great. I think I was probably introduced by Loida, but I will say my name is Michael Stevens. I'm an associate professor at the School of Information at San Jose State University. We are a 100% online program, so that allows me to come to you today from northern Michigan. It doesn't look like this right now because we're having a little bit of winter weather. We've had some snow and it's about 28 degrees or so. So not kind of, I think it would look more like this. This was almost our morning walk today, but it wasn't snowing that hard, but close. Okay, so let's dive in. Let's see how we do here with this. Colleague of mine knows that I like to think about and talk about the heart and what we do and about library school and how we train librarians. And he sent me the text of a speech given by Patricia Paylor called The Heart of the Matter in 1957. And it was printed then by Wilson Library Bulletin in February of 1957. So Patricia was talking in front of a big group, and she had a few things to say. And one of the things she said was, the best librarians I know are those who find in their jobs, whatever they may be, excitement and adventure that reward only the adventurous in spirit. And then she went on to say, I'm really telling you all that the heart has gone out of librarianship. And she says, all of the qualities have been taken away. We now produce people who have not learned the techniques or the principles of the spirit. And the gist of this is she riled a lot of people in 1957. The library schools were a little irked because what she was saying is the library schools are training people to, do what librarians do, but we're also sort of missing that spirit of adventure, that spirit of curiosity. And in her words, and I would also say would be my words, is that the heart has gone out of librarianship in 1957. Guess what? I think the heart is back. I think the times demand that the heart be back in what we do. And that's one of the reasons that I have, for over 10 years, been talking about what it means to encourage the heart in libraries. This is an article from aon.com. It's called The Future is Emotional. There's a link. These links are all in the slide download as well. This is fascinating to me. Human jobs in the future will be the ones that require emotional labor. The robots are coming and they're going to do all kinds of stuff, right? But this kind of work, medical work is one of the things they highlight, but I think information work and anything where we work with people, where we teach people, where we train people, where we put people together with information, this is going to be emotional work as well. And when I want to make sure, can everybody still hear me right? Cool, just have like a few little dings there. Yeah, thank you. Okay, thank you. So the heart is there as well, because when things happen, we organize and we get things done. This guy, and I don't want to dismiss him too much. I think I called him a bonehead when I did this in Australia, and you should not call people boneheads. This guy, with the inflection, this guy, he posted this thing at Forbes that Amazon to replace local libraries, blah, blah, blah. We rallied, and maybe some of you folks in the room or some of you listened to the recording tweeted back to Forbes and to this guy and actually, said, here's what libraries do. So we shut them down. They that is gone, and that to me that really illustrates what we do, you know, to advocate for ourselves as well as kind of reflects, no, we're more than what Amazon can provide and what Google can provide. And then there's this. Here's Christian Lorison. Just discovered him in the last few weeks. He is a librarian in Denmark, Roskilde, if I'm saying that right, I believe. And I just caught this tweet. I think I caught this because a bunch of people that I follow, I now follow Christian. A bunch of people I follow favorited it on Twitter. And this isn't still Twitter with all the crazy that happens on Twitter. It's such a really nice place to catch stuff like this. And Christian says, helped a woman this morning carry her baby carriage and kid, broken escalator, 40 steps down to the underground station. Helping others is so badass. Heart, I love that. Also, that is why I love working with libraries so much. That's it exactly. That's what we do. You know, we do things like that, I think, because we care. I think we're drawn to this profession because we care. Follow up, take a look at Christian stuff. It's very interesting. He does some really interesting presentations, and his Instagram is called Library Love Stories. And is there anything better than that? So take a look at his view of the world as well. So big shout out to him for the work he's doing. So what we're going to talk about today is what I think the Heart of Libraries is supporting learning and our users' curiosity through every means possible. And I want to run around that a few different ways and then talk a bit about what this looks like for us, how we might go forward, and things like that. But first, I want to say just a couple words about the Doc1 Library in Aarhus, Denmark. I was lucky enough to attend the Next Library Conference, Next Library 2017, and do a talk there with Jan Holmquist and Miley Joseph, which I'll tell you about a little bit later. But one of the things that the Doc1 Library did is they built their new beautiful library right on the waterfront. Is they worked with their users. They did all sorts of wonderful things. And Marie Ostergaard, now their director, actually said at a PLA, I think in 2016, she said, we built our library for people, not books. And that really resonated with me. I immediately rolled that into all of my classes that I teach. And I have been saying that ever since because I think it's so important. And I think it does speak to kind of this internal, personal, emotional thing that we do. Their library was designed using a model called the Four Spaces of the Public Library, coming out of the library school in Denmark. The four spaces include innovation, experience, empowerment, and involvement, and there are spaces where those converge. If you'll see that, that might be something super interesting to follow up on now. And I'm talking about a public library, but for the folks in the room that are coming from academic libraries, school libraries, special libraries, this works. You can craft this model, you can adapt this model to work in your situation. It might be something as simple as looking at your tiny little space you have and saying, yeah, we can have a way that we will inspire people here, something between innovation and experience and whatever that means for you and your space. So I want you to always remember that these things can scale. And if we see a model like this in one realm of our profession, I think it's a great thought exercise to see how it will apply to yours. So one of the things that the Doc1 Library did, and I'll just tell you a quick story. I was at the conference. The conference was in this space in the library, jam-packed with people. The library was open, so there were many, many library patrons there as well. And this is a tubular bell. You'll see it's a big gong in the meeting space or common space of the library. And what happens is if a baby is born in Aarhus, the parents are brought a device, maybe like this one, and right after, like in the hospital room or wherever, they bring the device, and the parents can tap a button, and the gong will ring. Okay, so we're having our afternoon reception. I know. We're having our afternoon reception at this conference. Imagine this room filled with librarians who are all, having our drinks. Let me have a little bit of my tea. And suddenly, the gong rings, and it was like everything went quiet for a minute. And I kid you not, and it might have been me too, but there were a couple of, maybe tears shed or just really emotional experience. It was very beautiful. And I think that connection to the community is something we should aim for. It doesn't have to be a giant gong again in the library, but that's another thought exercise to see where we might play that out. Cool. All right. So let's talk a bit about learning, because I said the heart of libraries is learning, and I really believe that. We've gone from this concept of learning in the warehouse, like this is what it looks like. This is what it looked like back then. That we would come in and get our book off the shelf, maybe about visiting Denmark, about taking a big trip, or about cooking, or about whatever we were interested in. We might flip through it, we might learn some things, we might take some notes, and then we'd leave, and that was that. But now there are so many ways that we might support learning, from very formal, informal, to unexpected ways, such as programs on how a side of beef is butchered at Johnson County Library in Kansas, to all the skulls are checked out at the University of Colorado Library. So there's many different ways, and a lot of these come down to helping people satisfy curiosity as well. And that's where we learn, where we don't even know that we're learning. And I think that's something that we have done very well, and we should continue to do with programming and learning opportunities, and just making spaces available to come in and be curious. So let's talk a little bit about foundations, these things that we do. Service, for sure. This is a lovely photo from Christchurch Library down in New Zealand, of a story time way back in the day, and it's just absolutely lovely. This is what we do. I love it. We will continue to do this, and we will continue to provide access, and we will continue to promote intellectual freedom, and the freedom to come in and look for something, to read something, to access something, to learn about something, no matter what it is. We're going to provide access. And really, we talk a lot about digital literacies and information literacy and all these things, but really, for me, in the 21st century, what it comes down to is these are life literacies. From ringing the gong when you're born to when you're later on in your life, every step of the way, I think the library should play a role, and we should help people understand how life works. And that might be K through 12 supporting learning, that might be in college, university supporting learning, helping students become adults, that whole idea of adulting and things like that, and then all the other things that helps us be human and helps us move through the world with understanding, hopefully gathering knowledge, and being like compassionate people. So here's a little quirk with our slides that says evolving service and engagement. And what does that mean? That means I'm going to give you some examples of some really interesting things that I've gathered over the past few years that really excite me and kind of point toward this idea of encouraging the heart, of service with heart, and examples that sort of show these things we just saw: service, access, freedom, and just life playing out in new and exciting ways in our libraries. This is Tess. She's at Westport, Connecticut Public Library. Her class came in to learn to do research on their reports they do in 5th grade. And her report topic was Titanic. What a cool topic, right? I would love that topic. That would have been me in 5th grade. And how excited would I have been in 5th grade to actually print a 3D Titanic as part of my learning, as part of my report, as part of getting up in front of my class after this trip to the library and saying, this is what I made, this is the Titanic. That, I just think that's so cool. Here's Carnegie Mellon University. Absolutely wonderful spaces. They pulled out some of the collection, and that's okay. Put the collection off site, you can get it to people. And the students now have a lot of space to bring in their own technology, as well as to interact with technology provided for them. Just caught this. This is Capital Area District Libraries. I caught this on LinkedIn. Forgive me, I don't have a super good citation. I actually sent the fellow a message about this. This is the community closet at Capital Area District Libraries, and it says, help yourself to some useful items and personal care products donated by library patrons and staff. This is a big deal, isn't it? Please close the door when you are finished. I need to find out more about this. And if anybody knows or has a good link, pop it into the chat, if you will. I just think this is beautiful to make this available to people. So if they do need something, they can step in, they can get what they need, and then just close the door after they are done. Gwinnett County Public Library, my good friend of mine, Michael Casey, works there. They have done a project with a vendor called Open Plus Biblioteca that has allowed them to open the library before the staff is present for a couple of hours, where people key themselves in to the library, yay, and they can come in and they can use resources and they can browse the shelves and all those things. And they're doing it also in the evenings. They have a security guard present, but what they have done is they have extended their hours. They don't have the staff to do it, but they have extended their hours to make the library more accessible to folks. I've talked to Michael about this a few times. Michael guest lectures in my class every semester and talks about this, that they really have not had problems. People come in, it's homeschoolers, it's people who want quiet time in the library just to browse the shelves, etc. Really exciting to see that happen. And at the same time, Gwinnett, there's a wonderful library, Gwinnett, a wonderful article Gwinnett, Michael and his director, Charles Pace, just put into Public Libraries Magazine. We'll try to get that. I'll make a note and add that to the blog post. Public Libraries Magazine, where they wrote about this initiative, the Open Plus system, as well as doing away with all the service points, all the desks. And now their librarians are roving around, library staff, circulation staff are roving around with kiosks, and they're meeting people in these comfortable spaces and working with them that way. And I think this is a beautiful example right here of this gentleman helping a lady with her books, etc. So I was very lucky to go to Australia this past summer and spend a month. I was a visiting professor at the University of Southern Queensland, but I also got to visit the capital city of Canberra and do a talk at the National Library of Australia. And I did a tour, and this is the library robot. The tour of the National Library of Australia included getting to meet the robot. And they pressed a button and he rolled out and he made a little speech. And he kind of tells what he does. And he says, I assist the human librarians by bringing the materials to the people that ask them. So the librarians pull stuff out of the closed stacks, they load them into this guy, and he takes them to where the people are. So, we talk about the robots replacing us, not going to happen, but they can certainly help us. Absolutely. I thought that was really interesting. This is my former library. I was employed at the St. Joseph County Public Library in South Bend, Indiana. Shout out to them for over 15 years. And they have redone a space, and they call it the Smart Box. And it is an interactive art installation that happens every month or every couple of months. And this is called the Micro Bend. And I think we've seen a couple of examples of it. They've done it very well, where you can take a picture with a green screen, and then you can print out a little vision of yourself and add it into this space. And that is actually the gentleman there on the one side, that is the mayor of South Bend, Indiana. And I think that's so cool that he is involved. Hunt Library, North Carolina State University, pulls in students' Instagram that are tagged with the library to sort of add that to the collection and to show it off. I think that's super cool. City Libraries in Townsville, Queensland, where my good friend Warren Cheatham works. They had a little issue with the young people graffitiing on the furniture. So instead of making rules and saying no, you can't do that and things like that, they had a program where they got new furniture, and then they let the young people work on stencils and do art, and then they made that the furniture. So that's what the furniture looks like, and it's furniture created by the young people. I think that's so cool, so exciting. There are a lot of libraries that are getting into community kitchens, to cooking programs. Philadelphia, the Free Library of Philadelphia, is take a look at that. The culinary literacy at the library at Philadelphia just blows my mind. This I think this is an important thing. And it fascinates me how far we've come from talking about like high tech, blah, blah, blah. This is technology too. Cooking is technology. But wow, get a group of people together and make a meal. And that's another way that we can build and encourage community. And it might also be meditation programs. I was very lucky to be invited to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan back in September to do a conference up there. And I met a librarian named Jeremy Morlock, who was, after my talk, he was running a meditation program. He was doing a version of a meditation program he does for the public for the conference. And it was fascinating because what an interesting thing to do to offer meditation. It's kind of like a version of story time for adults. This to kind of help people find and center themselves. And this is actually something we did at Next Library 2017. They sent us out into the stacks to find a book as sort of understanding meditation in the library, to find a passage in a book that resonated with us, and then to meditate on it. And that is the little passage I found wrapped in that blanket. And they had to sit and think about that phrase as a way to get lost in the library. Another way to sort of do this kind of retreat mindfulness thing, and I believe this is up in Madison, Wisconsin. Yay for the bubbler in Madison. This is the ambient music in the dark room where you can come in and listen to some nice soothing sounds, maybe lay down on a blanket or a mattress on the floor, or find a comfy cushion to sit on and listen to music. Pretty cool. Okay, so other things that I think we might do still along these lines of sort of how service is evolving is telling stories. And we do this, we tell stories well, but there are new ways that we might tell stories. So I know some people have been typing in. Let's have a little quiz. I think we're doing well on our time. Does anybody recognize where or what this might be? We'll give it just a second for maybe some person may type in. Depends on who might be joining us today. Maybe a little hint, a podcast fan, perhaps. Okay. Oh, Dave, I'm going to wait to see what you have to say. Ding, it is. Absolutely. Okay, this is John B. McLemore's Maze from a podcast called S-Town from This American Life in Serial. Big touchstone was S-Town. Like 40 million people downloaded it in the first month. And I think it was one of the touchstones that set podcasting up to be like a form of literature, a form of art. And now we're seeing libraries actually curate, and this is Sterling Municipal Library, curate iPads that you can come into the library and listen to or take home. Like this one, true crime is kind of popular right now as well, the SSDGM and all of that, and Up and Vanished. This is Kid Criminals, I think, so they've kind of focused on true crime. You can check this out. You'll get podcasts, you'll get articles to read, you might get other videos, that type of thing. Kind of interesting, but they do a wide range of iPads, curated iPads on a certain topic. So, I think we're in a renaissance of like podcasts. People are super interested, and if we can harness that and help people curate what they're interested in, I think that's great. Here's a nice example from our friends down in Australia. And I got to meet a couple of these librarians. Tea Tree Gully, they do adult story time. Tea Tree Gully Library, they do adult story time. They did mulled wine. It was during their winter, which was our summer. And they actually have people come in and do storytelling. So that's another way that we might tell stories and maybe have some mulled wine. Back here in California, Mill Valley Library has been collecting stories of the public. They're calling it the Naked Truth. And you can record a video, you can record your story, and then it becomes part of the library's collection. And you know what this does? We hear from people whose stories are not told by the mainstream media. We hear from gay people, we hear from minorities, we hear from people that might not rise up to the top all of the time. And here's one of our quirky slides. And I will just say that this slide says, I believe gathering these stories, putting them all together, sharing them like this, that really helps us create dialogue. And the dialogue that stories can create benefits everyone who participates. The person telling the story, the person hearing the story, and that circle. So let's go forward. Let's talk a little bit about the future. Where are we going? We're going always in a rapidly evolving information landscape. Nice, and I appreciate all the sharing in there. Phil, thank you. And I will follow up on that link as well. Phil, thank you so much for that. A rapidly evolving information landscape. I did a column, and it's set to tame the web post called Library Emoji, and this is what I called it in the column because I wanted to see how the databases would try to index a string of emoji. But what this is I think libraries using emoji or being aware of emojis is a great idea. Here's an example. Here's another quiz for the room. I'll just throw this up while I talk just a tiny bit about emoji. This is a pop culture reference, might be a movie, a story told in emoji, okay? So in the column, Library Emoji, I looked at a study that a linguist did on how people use emojis. And one thing that this study found is people, like groups of friends, family, use certain emojis, and we kind of develop our own language. And I've seen that. The other thing that is happening is people are starting to tell little stories with emojis. For example, we might tell a story of a movie like this one that was super famous in Australia many, many years ago. And I guess because I was just there, I've been rewatching like some of these Australian films. Any guesses in the, go ahead and throw that in. I will continue and we'll just see if anybody gets it. Oh, wow. Okay, so here's another one of these. Let's go to the next one. There it is. This is Grand Valley State University. They are actually like doing a real thing with emoji, not that, kind of fun stuff, telling stories is not fun or real. You can go into Grand Valley and then you can rate your experience at the library on a touch screen, which has like a frowny face, a smiley face, and a smiley face with hearts on the eyes. And then they gather those statistics. So they're actually gathering emojis as a way to gauge the user experience in the library. And there's the average library visitor experience for that day that I was actually visiting Grand Valley to talk to their library staff. Claire, you got it right. It's Muriel's Wedding. Thank you very much. What a great movie. Kind of brought ABBA back way back in the 90s. That's an obscure reference. Well done. Nice. Okay. I actually also, while in Australia, I went to the big art museum in Canberra, the capital city, and got to experience a virtual reality installation that was absolutely incredible. It was probably the best I've ever seen. And it really made me realize that this is going to be a thing, probably in the next few years. Just like we have our big TVs, our Netflix, our streaming, we may eventually have these to put on, and there will be even more ways, entertainment, whatever. But I think that's one to keep on the radar. And then there's this. Wow. I added these to the household just last year. It's been a year with Alexa. I said her name and she lit up over there. Yeah, and it's really interesting. I did a column on this called Flash Briefing. Again, another study actually found that people say thank you. Some people, certain percentage of people, say thank you to their virtual assistants. I am one of them. I do that. I don't know. Maybe it's because it's the way I was raised. I don't know, but I do say thank you. What's interesting, though, is there's so much interesting here. Privacy concerns for sure, all of that. But then also, what does this mean when we can ask a question of a thing in our house and get answers? That sort of changes what we do a little bit, at the reference desk. But I also think we need to be very aware of what these devices mean, how we might educate our users about them. And, there's going to be another wave as well. Next week is Black Friday. These things are going to sell again, just like they did a year ago. And Amazon said they sold millions. last time. So it'll be very interesting to see. Nice to see the Library of Congress and LA Public Library inside of the Alexa app as things that I can add to my flash briefing, which is a little thing that that will play when I request for it. So it's very interesting to think about this. Now, I want to say one quick thing, and I am watching the time. Okay, up here, I think we've embraced this more in the United States, and I think that's interesting. Between like here in the room with me, I have this one. I won't say her name again, make her light up, and I also have the Apple one. And I talk to both of them, and I say thank you to both of them. I think we're kind of in here in the States for the most part. These were just creeping in to down in Australia with our friends down there, and it was very interesting to hear people talk about them. It'd be very interesting if they will get the same like number sold in Australia that we saw or that Amazon hinted at last year. So with that said, and I've kind of been kind of tech heavy here, I wanted to tell you that really technology is no longer an add-on in what we do. It can't be this thing over here. It has to be ingrained and incorporated into everything, because everything we just talked about podcasts, about stories, gathering stories, about emojis, and about virtual assistants, that's literacy too. And that's life literacy. These are all literacies, and it all goes back. That's just like reading. It's, again, understanding the way the world works. So let's talk a little bit about going forward, about just finding that balance with all of these things going on. We must never forget that the human heart is at the center of the technological maze, and that is Stephen Barnes. I think that's an absolutely beautiful statement, and that's, wow, I like it. So where do we find the technology? Where do we find the heart inside of technology? I have some examples for you. Let's take a look. Here they are. Wow. This is so cool. This is the, I'm going to not say it well, forgive me, the Invercargill Library in New Zealand. This is their social media team. They're the ones that did the Keeping Up with the Librarians photo shoot. I know. And I met them at the big conference that I was at in Australia, at the Asia Pacific Library and Information Conference, where I did the keynote, closing keynote. I got to meet them, got to attend their presentation, and then I got to put this picture up on my big slides at the end, and they were thrilled with that. But their take on social media is absolutely incredible, and their engagement with the community through pop culture, through kind of the like what's going on in their town, they really do a good job. And I think we can we can learn from them, we can get inspiration from them. I watched Friends, loved Friends, and then to see this, I guess that kind of dates me a little bit, but wow, absolutely wonderful. Another way, another technology, if you will, are these cards made by the University Libraries at the University of Colorado Boulder. And this is Adam, who I was very lucky to work with at a research institute a few years ago at Loyola Marymount University. And this is Adam's card, and he shared this with me, and we put it up on my blog. Look at the library staff back there. They're like those trading cards that we did back in the early 2000s. There he is, sharing himself, what he's interested in, what he can help students with, his specialty areas, and how to get a hold of them. I think that's incredible. I think that's the human face of the libraries, and there's so many other examples. But what really gets interesting to me, and we're back to our friends at Doc1 and Aarhus, is this idea of sharing the faces of the library users. And what they have done is a People at Doc series on their Instagram. I think this is brilliant. They're doing these beautiful black and white photographs of their users. They come in and they ask her to tell her a little bit of her story, and you can read this. But she says, just briefly, I was looking around at the students. It's a little strange for someone my age to see how different it is to be a student today. They just bring the computer and then they lie there in the big couches in all kinds of positions. It's so relaxed. It's like their living room. I think that's beautiful. I'm so glad they captured that story. I want to see more of this. I want to see the faces of the people using your libraries. I want to see those connections being shared. So how do we do this? I really believe it starts with us. It starts with us. This is the librarians class of 1908 at the University in Morgantown, West Virginia, when I was visiting them and doing a talk for them. And I really believe that we are in the ultimate service profession. And you may have heard me say that before. What does that mean? That means we do it all. And some stuff, you know, we don't say we didn't sign up for this because guess what we did? And that might be shoveling the snow outside of the branch, or that might be whatever comes into the realm, like Christian said about helping somebody get the baby carriage and the baby down 40 steps. So how do we do this? I think it takes librarian superpowers. I want to tell you a little bit about those. This was actually born out of a column I wrote as a follow-up to the workshop that I taught at Next Library 2017 with Jan Holmquist from Denmark. He's now in New Zealand, and Miley Joseph, who is in Australia. They actually, at Next Library, they put people together from all over the world and say, do this. And so we each brought our chunk that we wanted to do. And my part was called the Formula for Success, where we actually looked at what skills are needed, what mindsets are needed, and what support is needed for us to be successful. And what came out of that, it's kind of like mini research, but not, you know, approved research, was what I would say are the most important soft skills that we need to do our jobs. We can teach people how computers work and how Dewey works or how library stuff works, but this is the harder stuff to teach. This is the stuff I think we need to bring with us. This is the stuff we need to encourage. This is the stuff that I think we do need to find ways to teach in library school and with new librarians. And here you go. I really believe that soft skills are the heart skills. These are the ones that matter the most to what we do for 21st century information work. And let me take you through them. First up is curiosity. We for sure want to bring this out in our users, but we also want to be curious ourselves. We need to be curious about everything. If you are not curious about the way the world works, you may have to push yourself a little bit, because I think that's important for understanding how all this stuff works. We need to be curious about what a virtual assistant in everybody's house means for 21st century information work. Creativity, of course, very important. Can you hear me? Testing, testing. I just saw lost sound. I want to make sure you can hear me. I'll wait. Okay, good. Thanks. I'm keeping an eye right there. Okay, thanks everybody. Sorry about that. Take a breath. All right. Creativity, also important. That's thinking outside the box. That's looking at problems and thinking of solutions that might be out of the realm a little bit. Confidence, another good one. And there's a wonderful librarian I did a two-piece column with. Her name, I'm going to say it wrong, I'm sorry. Her name is Sally Pawenge, and she's in New Zealand, and she writes about confidence and does some really cool things about instilling confidence in librarians. She was kind of worried or concerned or afraid of making videos. So she said, I'm going to make a video. And that first one wasn't very good. Second one was okay. And by the fifth one, she kind of found her, she got her confidence with making videos, and she felt comfortable enough to post a video. Take a look, there's going to be in the links as well, but having confidence to do this stuff. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to understand every single technology, but having the confidence to say, oh, I learned all about doing videos, so now I can move on to this next thing, and it might be learning everything there is to know about how virtual assistants work and how artificial intelligence is changing the landscape of information or whatever. It's just that confidence that we need. Empathy, incredibly important. Putting yourself in the other person's shoes. I would suspect that Christian probably did that when he helped the lady down the steps with the baby carriage. When somebody comes in and they're across the desk and they have $10 in fines, but they really need something, just let them check it out. You know, put yourself in their place. Can we bend those rules? Can we break those rules? I think empathy is one of the most important things, as well as this, a high degree of character, especially for leaders. That's kind of being, you know, on the level, forgive me. And then there's this, compassion. Again, I think that goes hand in hand with empathy. You may have read about the rescue dog that we adopted. His name is Dozer. His name was Dozer. We had him for 2 years. It was an amazing experience. There's a link at the blog post about everything I had to say about Dozer and how he really kind of changed my view about compassion and empathy and how we might bring that to our information work and to leadership. And I'm going to go. And then there's this. In my talk up in the Upper Peninsula, and I told you about Jeremy, who was teaching the classes on meditation, I was running through these. I did some of these slides for this group way up in Michigan, a lot of rural librarians. And I ran through, confidence, empathy, character, compassion, told Dozer's story. And Jeremy raised his hand and he said, I think I would add mercy to that list. And he said that we don't talk about that enough, and that sometimes we are in a position, and this word, it's kind of, there's a lot about this word that's very interesting, and some of it, in my personal opinion, might be kind of wrapped up in being brought up in a religious household or whatever, or it has sort of connotations of certain things, but it's really interesting to think about and how we might show mercy in providing services to people, and maybe all the way back to that door that said, come in here and get what you need, and just close the door behind you. I think this is fascinating. I don't know exactly where to go with this. If anybody has thoughts and you want to email me after we're done, I would love to hear your thoughts about this. This is brand new to me. I wanted to incorporate it here because I think it's important, and I'm still kind of mulling around myself. All right, I'm watching the time. We will keep going. And so finally, super important, I think all of these lead to this, which is understanding. I just saw an article go by I need to read about cultural humility, which is understanding yourself and everything, your background and your experiences, and what that means to you, understanding other people, diversity, etc. I think that's what we want to aim for, is understanding how big the world is and how diverse the world is and how different people are, but still we're all sort of the same. Wow. Okay, so how do we do this? One of the ways we do it is reflective practice. I think this is a nice thing to think about. You can incorporate it into your daily practice. It's threefold. Be open-minded about these things. Be very open-minded about new tech coming down, about new trends, about things we're seeing happening in libraries that we might like, oh, that's happening now? I don't know, but no, be open-minded, just try it on. Take responsibility for your actions. That's owning it, as they say, and come to your work with wholeheartedness. Oh, okay. This is one of those quirky slides. I have them running over here too. The slide just dropped the word wholeheartedness, so you can see that there, but really it's just like, there it is, a great big heart. Absolutely the same thing. Peter Bromberg, an incredible librarian, sent me this photo. This is on the door of one of the departments at the Salt Lake City Public Library. We work together to make lives better. I love this. We are inclusive, open, curious, playful, and kind. I think this speaks a lot to reflective practice as well as all those soft skills, which are really heart skills. These are all of those as well. Make a note, grab a screenshot, grab that and put that up on your door as well. So I think we should always be learning. We should never stop learning and always look to develop ourselves. I'm going to take a little tiny detour here, again, watching the time. I've been doing a research project for over a year now on professional learning experiences, professional development with public librarians. I did it in the US, did a talk about that last ALA in New Orleans, spent a lot of this year working with Australian librarians, University of Southern Queensland, Helen Partridge and Kate Davis, to do the same thing down there with our friends in Australia. And I led a workshop at this past ALA, kind of pulling in some of the Australian data and some of the American data. But we did it, of course, I'm not going to get up and like talk at people. Dave, thank you. We did an interactive thing where we asked people to identify trends, their learning needs, and the support they need to do their jobs. So this is an exercise. Sorry, this is a really long way to say this is an exercise that you can do in your libraries. And I wrote this up. And also the formula for success, I wrote that up as well. Both of those things can be done. I've done these things at staff development days at libraries, and it can be a really good exercise to see what's going on in the library, what people need to learn about, and then what we need to support them. For example, homelessness. How do we help people? What do we need to do that? How do we combat compassion fatigue, which is a really interesting phrase that I had not heard until in this room full of people. Professional learning experiences, sorry. That's a phrase we've adopted just to make it a little more nuanced than professional development, which almost to me has kind of a different connotation. This is what we need, all kinds of experiences to learn to do our jobs. And thanks for that. Thanks for calling that out. I want to make sure that I define these things. And if we turn that around and talk about the support needed, we might tap into some things that will help us manage ourselves, administer ourselves better. And the other thing I've been doing is a narrative inquiry study on professional learning experiences of Australian public librarians. So I'm doing Zoom interviews where I just asked people to tell their stories. It's been fascinating. And one librarian said, I want to pick people's brains until there's nothing left. She wants to learn from everybody she meets to find out everything. And I just really appreciated that attitude. So going forward, and I got to watch the time. I so appreciate everybody listening and chiming in. Absolutely. So what are we? We are learners. We make connections and we open doors. We listen in every way we can. We teach in every way we can, from formal programming all the way down to one-on-one. I just got, whoops, where'd it go? Just got this, still trying to figure out how it works. Maybe I could go to the library and say, help me with this, because people are going to bring their tech into the library and we can help them. We build community. This is the knitting group at Gwinnett County Public Library. They are a community. They are talking. They are learning from each other. They're exchanging ideas and they're knitting the whole time. And we welcome everyone in. I told our colleagues down in Australia that this is what's happening in the United States right now. Cornell University, other libraries have had to put up signs on the door to say what we do, what we have always done in libraries, but we have had to make it very clear that the library is a safe place for everyone. Hopefully, we won't have to keep putting up those signs, but as long as we need them, they will be there, and as long as people need help, we will be there. So how do we do this? We do it with humanity and heart. Don't put a mean sign on your bathroom door, folks, please. Don't put a mean sign in a not a study area, because guess what? Anywhere is a study area. And we can do this with, I'm going to say it wrong for our friends in Denmark, Hygge, which is a thing that came out of those cold, long winters in Denmark. We're citing Denmark again here in the talk. I think that says something. Hygge means a feeling of belonging, a feeling of warmth, a feeling of community. The libraries in the Anythink system designed their new buildings with this in mind, to pull people in. They have fireplaces to help them feel kind of warm and comfortable. We also do it with kindness in every sense of the word. And I saw somebody say earlier, having therapy dogs come in. Here it is. This is Pause for Pause at the Kramer Family Library, yay, at the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs. I know there's a lot going on right now here. We have Hygge, and now we have this whole concept of kindness and bringing dogs in, all of these things, and I really think they're connected as well. And all of these things are pointing toward this idea of creating a space for all. So going forward, a couple of thoughts, and then we're going to wind up. uh, we're hurtling toward, I believe, we will be living in a global classroom where we will be able to learn, to be entertained, to experience things from all over the world because we will be connected. There'll be many ways to discover new things, to be curious about things, and to make connections. And maybe the knitting group at Gwinnett will someday connect to the knitting group in South Africa or wherever, and they're going to exchange ideas or whatever it might be. And we will be community learning connectors to support people every step of the way. So I left this in. This was the theme of the conference I attended in Australia this summer that I spoke at was Roar, Leap, and Dare. And it was kind of brilliant because we need to be vocal, we need to make leaps of faith, we need to take risks, and we need to dare to do these things that we've been talking about. What I added to the conversation in my talk, in my closing keynote, was I also think we need to reflect, we need to breathe, and we need to love. I just posted to my students, my hyperlinked library class in San Jose, that we all, like, I said, everybody, let's take a breath, because I've had like a really kind of a big week already, getting ready for this, and a big paper came in, lots of stuff to, and I said, let's all take a breath. And then this last one, this one's really interesting. We need to love what we do. We need to send love out into the world. I think that's very important. I've heard many people say that, and I think it's important. And I think we should come around to finding ways for people to experience joy. Joy in our jobs for us, but also for our users, that they can come into the library or they can connect to the library, they can find something on their phones that the library has made available that brings them joy. And it might be something as simple. I keep coming back to this example from the capital area libraries about, come in here and get what you need, that type of thing, to everything else we've seen, to cooking together, to just being with people, to coming in and laying around on a couch and not getting in trouble. Absolutely. So I honestly believe, and we're going to go way back, we're going to go back to 2005, when I was running my mouth about something called Library 2.0, and I said library should encourage the heart. Guess what? I still believe that. And what does that mean? That means we should lead from the heart. That means if you are a leader, if you are a library director, you need to put the heart first and foremost. You need to put people first and foremost. You need to have character. You need to be open, transparent. You have to do all those things. It is a big job to ask folks to do, and I am knocked out by some of the library administrators that I've got to meet. It also means we need to learn from the heart. And that means it should be okay to say, I don't know, or I don't understand this. Can you help me? And saying, I don't know, is really like saying, I'm scared to a certain degree when you do say, I don't know. And then finally, we should play from the heart in every sense of the word, to be playful, to be just excited, and to have that sort of approach that things can be fun. So wow, this has been a big deal. I really appreciate your time, everybody. I know we went right up to the point. I don't know if we can take like a question, or I can certainly do those if anybody wants to send me a message on Twitter or shoot me an email. Absolutely. The slides will go up. I'm going to add a few links to this later on today, so check that post again, and I'll tweet and retweet and that. So thank you, everybody. Thanks everyone for attending. Loida, I so appreciate everything you're doing as ALA president and giving me this opportunity to play a small role in that today. I so appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, and thanks everybody. And yay, we made it, and the slides, the slides work, so yay. And to Beatrice and Pam from IT, thank you so much. And I need to follow up on all these nice links that everybody sent too. Just gonna look at the chat go by. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for playing along too with some of the pop culture references.